Welcome to the Social Regressive, everybody. Hunting season is upon us, and like me, you may need to add a scope to your rifle that you've had sitting in a closet for a while. This is my Stevens 200 that's wearing a 308 Axis barrel, and it has a Boyd's @1 stock in forest camo. I've tested this rifle in the past. You might have seen some videos that I've done with this. And this whole build overall is fantastic. With my hunting loads, I'm getting about a half MOA, and I can really kind of bring the hurt with this rifle. It's easy to swing, great balance, and if you want to check out what we've done with it in the past, comparing it to a scout rifle, go check that out because both of those rifles were really fun to shoot, especially on moving targets, which may actually happen out in the field. But yeah, what I really need is a scope, and so today we are taking a look at the Bushnell Prime. The Prime has been out for about a year and a half now, but this is a new model. We've taken a look before at the 1-4X, which is sitting on top of a 458 SOCOM rifle. And this one is a traditional hunting setup right here. This is your basic 3 to 9 by 40, and from there things get much less basic. In the past, if you wanted to outfit a rifle very inexpensively with a scope, you go down to your sporting goods store or your hunting store, and they would have that Bushnell Banner sitting there, the 3 to 9 by 40, you know, the classic setup that should be useful for your close range shots out to some of your medium range targets. No fancy reticle, it's just a multi-X. And this deviates from that formula just a little bit. It still has the classic setup of 3 to 9 by 40, but what the Prime series does is it takes a lot of those things you used to get on the Banner, and really they have thrown out a lot of those things. The Banner was a good scope for the money, but in the end, I remember looking through some of them and just not really thinking all that much about the glass, and everything just kind of seemed like, yeah, I was going to get the job done, but nothing really special to it. And it was a great price point. But this is something else entirely. This sticks with an excellent price point, but it really starts to bring some uprated features and build quality, as we've seen with that other Prime. And yeah, this one is going to be a real standout. We're going to delve into this right now and see what makes this such a special scope on the market. From every angle, the Bushnell Prime does not look or feel like a budget scope at all. It feels very much uprated. All of the milling that's done, all these little details that you see in here, there are no chatter marks. It's all just beautifully cut, and it feels really good too. You get just the tiniest bit of radiusing on this, but you also get really good traction. And that applies to the zoom ring back here as well. Everything just feels and looks good. And of course, that's going to apply to the glass as well, in case you were wondering. We're going to delve into that here in a second, but for now, I just wanted to talk about its form factor. This is a relatively short scope overall, 12.13 inches, and it doesn't weigh very much. It weighs just less than a pound, 15.9 ounces, so it's coming in below that magic mark. And then this is a 1-inch tube with that 40 millimeter objective, and this is going to be able to sit very low and light on your hunting rifle. This is a 1-inch tube is just a great choice. Yeah, you don't get all the adjustment range that you're going to get out of a 30 millimeter tube, but this is kind of a lock and leave scope, so it doesn't really matter. But it's going to keep the light weight, and you're going to be able to get it a lot closer down to your bore than you will with a lot of other types of rifle scope. Under these turret caps, which are sealed with an O-ring, to help with the waterproofing overall, this should be a scope that'll handle your difficult weather conditions without any problems at all. You're going to get a simple turret right here. It does not track up and down. This is one that you just use to find your zero and then lock it down. And then once you do find your zero on the elevation or the windage here, all you have to do, well, with the elevation at least, you just get this one screw that you can turn off with the rim of a cartridge or a coin or something. Kind of float this around to the spot where it's supposed to be, lock it back down, and then you are zeroed. This is, like I mentioned, the kind of scope that you're going to want to lock and leave. It has a very simple reticle. This isn't really meant for dialing, but in the past, with any of the Bushnells that I've tried, including the Prime, it is going to have very precise tracking. So if you do want to be able to dial this out in the field, you sure can, and it will work. This is an MOA scope, like you might imagine, so quarter MOA clicks on here, as well as on the windage turret over here on the side. To take this one off, this is actually a little bit different, I think, from the previous model. This one does have that same simple one screw detachment right here. I think that the 1 to 4 had some of the little set screws in here to spin off. I might be thinking of a different scope, but yeah, this is going to be very easy to set your 0 and get it all squared away. The primary control that we're all going to deal with is the zoom ring, and I'm happy to report that this has just nailed the perfect feel. It's perfectly smooth all the way around, no hitches, no sudden changes in tension or anything, even as you get toward the extreme ends in here. That cam tube must be set up just perfectly, because this feels great. And it's going to be one that if you do have your target in your sights and you want to be able to change your zoom without knocking your view off, it's going to be very easy to spin up and down. The last control we have to deal with is the illumination knob over here on the side. And this is another one that they've set up quite brilliantly. This has 6 levels of illumination, and then there's a 0 point between each of the numbers. So right now I'm on 0, pop it up to 1, it locks neatly into place. Or if I want to back it off to 6, let's take a look through here. Let's see if we can get a view, because this, it doesn't really have an illuminated reticle. It has a center illuminated red dot. The way that Bushnell has paired their multi-X reticle with this red dot is, to be punny, brilliant. It actually does all add up to a very functional and very well thought out setup. A nice multi-X reticle like this is going to eliminate a lot of the weeds and a lot of this stuff that we're getting in a lot of reticles nowadays. Some folks just want to go out there and shoot with a kind of simple crosshair, because for one thing, it's going to make it a little bit easier to get on target. Sometimes if you have a whole lot of things going on in your reticle, it can be, you can actually kind of lose that center of everything. And especially with all these thin little lines, sometimes you just can't really see your target, especially if you have a whole lot of brush in the way. You can kind of get lost in the mess. So with a little bit of a thicker stadia at those edges, kind of tapering down to the small, you're going to be able to really zero in on your target quickly. It's just going to have these great index vectors pointing exactly where you want to go. And then especially if you switch on that red dot, you're going to know exactly where to hit. I think especially as you get down toward dusk, when your big buck inevitably walks out right before that 30 minutes past sundown and things are getting a little bit difficult to see, you're going to have that red dot pointing exactly where you want it to, and then you can pull the trigger and not have to worry about trying to find things in the reticle. All of that is great, but here is where the Bushnell Prime really starts to shine. I'm going to pop off the caps that came with this scope. Yes, these actually did come in the box. A great little addition, a little value for money they threw in. I think these are made by Butler Creek. They look and feel like it. You get the neat little lever that you can push here to pop open the rear one. And then the front one is the type that you push forward. They feel very stout. These are not cheap scope rings, or excuse me, scope caps. They do feel very nice. But here is where this really starts to come alive. Yes, all of the mechanicals are good, and we didn't take a look at this one last mechanical, which is the fast focus eyepiece back here. It is pretty easy to turn, maybe a little easier than I would like. I do like it when these kind of lock down a little bit more firmly so they don't spin, but that's another good reason for using these scope caps. Once these are in place, it'll let you know if you've knocked it off any. You can straighten it back up. I do recommend with any of these fast focus eyepieces that you make 2 little dots on here to indicate your diopter adjustment. If you want to really crank this in so that you can see the reticle in focus as was designed, then yeah, I recommend that you do that. But the total image through here is fabulous. I was not really expecting it to be as good as it was. We tested out that 1 to 4, which was a beautiful image through there. Again, unexpected, because it is so bright, so clear, there's so much resolution. And not only that, there's no color cast. It just seems to absorb all the colors and bring them very precisely to your eye. It's a much better scope than its price tag indicates. And this one is the same thing, possibly even better. This is the weird part. I was expecting this with its higher zoom range. I guess it's not total zoom range, but it's zoom capabilities. This is a 3x zoom ratio up to that 9x, but I was expecting at 9x for the resolution maybe to roll off a bit more than that 1:4 toward the edges, and it doesn't. The resolution really does a great job of keeping up toward the edges. It does fall off just the tiniest little bit at the edges, but overall you are ending up with a rifle scope that has resolution far beyond what it should. I have no idea how Bushnell is producing this scope with this quality at that price point. It just floors me. It has lenses that are fully multi-coated all the way around. This does not have the exo barrier, so that might be a reason to look at the Engage if you want to be able to step up a little bit and pick up one of the scopes that has the ability to basically brush off anything that ever wants to get on the lens. Nothing will ever stick to it. No fingerprint, no pine tar, no anything. From what I hear, the guys at Bushnell were trying to stick anything to the lens and nothing really worked. This does not have that, but this does still have a good anti-fog and good lens coatings all the way through, so you get a great image, and it should repel pretty much anything. Water should just bead up right off this, and it should be good to go for those outdoor uses. Overall, this is a waterproof scope. I'll include the details in the description here. But yeah, this should just be ready to go for rough use. And when you're tearing through the woods, you don't have to worry that this scope is going to get knocked off, lose its zero, or anything like that. These are built like little tanks, and they are going to get the job done. Inside the attractive gray and orange box, we do have some extra goodies. We've already taken a look at the scope caps, which I still can't believe that they've thrown these in. These are quite high quality, and those are going to be useful out in the field. But inside here, we do have... First off, here is the instruction manual, just one well-shot card here that tells you how to reset your turrets. Done. Okay, that was simple. And then inside here we get not just a lens cloth, but one of these protected ones that comes inside a little Bushnell logo sleeve with a clip. So you can put this on a belt loop if you want to keep this around for clearing up. This doesn't come with any wrenches because, hey, with this one you don't need them. Remember that all you need is a piece of brass to be able to turn that off, or a coin, so no need for any special Allen keys or anything like that. It's just simple to use. Price tag, great. Feature set, great. If there's any one thing that might point you toward a different rifle scope for your build this year, it's probably going to be the amount of light that this can absorb. Yes, Bushnell has put a lot of work into figuring out some great lenses and coatings to get this scope to where it will be very useful out in the field. They've done their work, but in the end, a 50 millimeter objective really is going to absorb more light. And it might be, if you absolutely know you're going to be in some dimmer regions of the world and things are going to be very dark, like maybe you're going to be in thick forest before that sunset hour, then yeah, maybe you want to look toward the Engage, which has one option. They have a 3 to 9 by 50 millimeter scope, and I think it also still has a 1-inch tube, so that might be a great option for you to be able to see more in those very dusky conditions. This one, though, for most of us, I think is going to get the job done. And remember that we do have that old trick where if we are starting to get into those darker conditions, just roll it back to your lowest magnification, and then you should be able to see for a little bit longer. Add all of these facets together and you end up with a rifle scope that I cannot wait to get out in the brush. Simplicity sometimes is just plain beautiful. Sometimes you don't want a gigantic Christmas tree reticle. If you know your terrain, you know where you're going to be, if you know that your shots are probably going to be within those kind of closer range to intermediate distances, then the Prime here is just perfect for you. And that little extra edge of adding the illumination and being able to, you know, kind of scale back and choose how bright you want it to be, that's really going to be optimal for those conditions where, you know, maybe the sun hasn't quite gone down yet, but it's a cloudy sky. You want to be able to see what's going on. The glass is going to get you there. And then that one perfect little red dot on your target, I think, is really going to spell the difference between a hit and a miss. I know that there are times when I've been out with a scope and, you know, maybe I have a really messy background back there where I have you know, trees and brush and all that kind of stuff. It's easy to lose a simple crosshair and not be able to see, you know, where I'm actually supposed to be hitting. Kind of have to move the scope around in order to figure out, okay, where am I actually pointing? That little red dot is going to be a real boon to a lot of you shooters, I think. Thanks a lot to Bushnell for sending this out for me to test. We're going to be showing this off in the future, see how it actually works out in the field. But just in my own little testing here in the garage and messing around with it, I'm blown away with it so far. Quality is, yeah, just out of this world. Thank you to patrons of the Destructive Arts that have made reviews like this possible. I like being able to test out a lot of this budget gear and show you guys how maybe you can make your dollar stretch a little bit further when you're out on the hunt or out at the range or having fun someplace else plinking around. You guys, thanks a whole lot. We have the Sportsman's Guide at the 338 Lapua Magnum level. We have Stan and Mary at the 338 Lapua Magnum level, Peter at the 300 Win Mag level, and if anybody else wants to chip in $1 or $2 a month to help keep videos like these coming, I'll put a link to Patreon down here. I thank you all for all your support and for subscribing. Make sure that you subscribe, share, hit the notification bell so that you hear when new videos come out, and I will see you guys around. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These 2 videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, The Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.